You're listening to the B&H Photography Podcast. I'm Jill Waterman, the show's creative producer. I'm also host of our new monthly series, Picturing World Cultures. We carry our past with us, inheriting a living history from those who came before us and shaping it for the generations ahead. Making photographs that celebrate this heritage is at the heart of today's show, which explores Norwegian Sami culture and the legacy of its oral traditions and ancestral beliefs. Instead of the standard 4 seasons, the Sami recognize 8. Hear their names and consider how these cyclical changes in nature affects daily life on the land. We also talk about varied relationships between a photographer and his or her subjects, and acknowledge the trust that results from portraying people as they wish to be seen. Our guest is Naina Helén Jåma, a South Sami photographer and storyteller from Snasa, Norway, currently based in Oslo. After starting her career at the Saemien Sijte Museum at age 15, Naina has maintained a close relationship with the traditional Sami arts of Duodji. Documenting the ongoing development of this art form pays tribute to oral knowledge and silent tradition, which is learned and transmitted visually. Trained at the Nordic School of Photography in Sweden, Naina also works as both a photojournalist and a photo editor for various Scandinavian newspapers and agencies, as well as major international publications. Naina is a member of the Sami Artist Association, and in 2020, she received a working grant from the Sami Council. Most recently, she was selected by the Norwegian Journal of Photography as one of 9 photographers to work on a 2-year heritage project, photographing and doing in-depth interviews focused on the evolving legacy of Sami culture. Naina Helén Jåma, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Nice to be here.
Yes, great speaking with you today. So you currently live in Oslo, but you're originally from the small village of Snasa near the geographic center of Norway. What was it like to grow up in that region of Norway?
It's a big question, but yeah, I had a really good childhood. I find it the best place in Norway, but I guess everyone would say that about their childhood home.
So I assume it was a very rural area?
Yeah, it's not a big city. It has approximately 2,000 inhabitants.
And has the area changed much since your childhood days?
It depends how you see it. I think you could have the same childhood as me if you grow up there today. The biggest change may be wind power plants.
Yes, industrialization.
Yeah. So that might be only thing that has changed there.
Uh-huh. And you're of South Sami heritage, which is an indigenous culture spread across northern parts of Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Russia's Kola Peninsula. What, in your opinion, are some defining characteristics of the Sami people and culture?
It's the only culture I have, so that's also a big question. I mean, we're the indigenous people of Sápmi, this area in the Nordic countries, so we share a lot of similar experience with other indigenous peoples throughout the world with colonization and such. But we have a close relationship to the land still today, and we also have a close relationship to each other. So it's a tight community.
And Sami traditionally are a nomadic culture, but I assume that has changed somewhat over time.
I guess it depends on what kind of job you have. If you're, for example, working with reindeers, you need to live at several different places to be by the summer grassing area and the winter grassing area. But since we have better machinery today, it gives you the opportunity to move over bigger areas.
So the reindeer herders would be traveling with motorized vehicles today?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But I would say we have a tradition to travel through big areas and meet up with each other. Yeah.
And the Sami people, there's 10 different languages that are spoken across all the different national borders. But how much diversity is there in the traditions and lifestyles of the different language groups?
We have a lot of things in common, and I'm not an expert of the other areas, only my own.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say we have more things in common than we don't have.
But what are the differences between Sami culture and the colonizing Nordic cultures?
Well, we have had a different history. We have had a different religion and different traditions regarding different parts of life, like rituals for when you grow up. But of course, we have always been living side by side, so we have been affecting each other.
Mm-hmm. So you have a background in the arts that dates back to your teenage years when you worked at the Saemien Sijte Museum in Snasa. And one of the projects you worked on was to scan a photo archive with historic portraits of Sami people. Can you talk about the background of the museum and the archive that you were working with?
Yeah, this was my first summer job, actually. It's called Saemien Sijte, and it's the only South Sami museum.
Mm.
And it started in 1964 to be a place for South Sami people to meet and also to show our culture and handicrafts to others. So it started like a organization, kind of.
So like an artisans organization?
Yeah, for the local people to meet and to
Mm-hmm.
be proud of our culture. Since we are a minority and we're spread throughout such big areas. So that was how it started. And they also take care of old objects, and a part of the collection is old pictures that they take care of.
Hmm. And who were the photographers? Were they known photographers or are they anonymous pictures?
No, most of these pictures are like family pictures. So some of them are taken at different studios in towns.
Mm-hmm.
And some are when some families got their own cameras. But also there were one in particular, one of the first South Sami photographers, Nils Thomasson.
Mm.
There's a lot of his pictures also in the collection. So you can see very different styles depending on time.
That must have been fascinating.
Mm.
And was that how you got interested in photography initially, or did you already have a camera and were taking your own pictures at that point?
Oh, I got my first camera when I was 6 from my godfather.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, taking pictures, it's always been about the people and the stories.
Mm.
So I've used different tools to tell the stories or to express myself.
And what kind of pictures were you taking at that early, at 6 and as a young child?
I guess, like everyone else, like documenting my family and the people around me, collecting memories. And also through this work at Saemien Sijte, I understood how strongly it affected me to see back in time.
Right, yeah. Was there anything you learned about or absorbed from the museum's photo archive that you incorporate in the pictures you take today or changed the way you were taking pictures back at that time?
I don't know if it changed me, but how important it is to collect the memories and how real the history became for me when I saw them. Because in the Norwegian school system, you don't learn about the Sami history. It's not a big part of the curriculum. But through those pictures, it was so present, and it made me aware that it was a lot of knowledge that I have missed out on, and got me more curious about my own history.
Interesting. So actually, Sami culture is very much an oral tradition of storytelling rather than written. These photographs, was that a part of what interested you? The fact that it was beyond language?
Yeah, I would say so. And there's a lot of written sources about the Sami culture, but the ones who wrote were like scientists or priests coming up with an agenda or with a view that indigenous peoples were not as valuable as other people, for example, and that could affect how they told our story. And that might also have affected how the earliest pictures have been made.
Right. They were more objectifying people than diving deeply into the experience.
Yeah.
So one aspect of Sami culture is making handcrafted items, which in Sami is called duodji, or vetno is another word. And these are practical items that are used in daily life. And you photographed this subject for your thesis project in photo school. Can you talk about your approach to making these pictures and how you went from the idea to the actual photographs?
I started with my teacher telling me to dig where you're standing when we were going to choose a subject. Make something about something you really know a lot about. So then it was natural for me. And also with my grandmother's voice in my head when she says that she didn't really have gone to school and she didn't have that much knowledge. And me wanting to acknowledge that this kind of knowledge is harder to get these days. It's easy for me to go to a school, but all those facts and things you learn when you're out in the land or when you're with an elder who can learn you about the handicrafts, it's harder. So I wanted to give the statues back to the handicrafts and show it not only the finished products, but the process. And it's living today because I've been confronted a lot, especially at the museum, that our culture is something in the past, but it's still in the present and it's developing.
So the handicrafts are still going strong. There's still a lot of people committed to making items for daily use in society today?
Yeah, I would say so. Through our handicrafts, we tell stories about ourselves. You can see a person's styles, but also family traditions, where you're from, and different social status of the things that you carry on your body.
That can tell a lot about a person. And I would also assume that the things that get made break down to the type of work someone does. Like a farmer would be making different items than a reindeer herder, for example.
Yeah, perhaps for everyday use, but also you can see that we're trading different objects with each other.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So how easy was it to find your subjects for these pictures? Was there much resistance from people to letting you into their homes to photograph?
No, not really, because my approach, since I've been studying Duodji myself and I'm really interested, my main goal was that I was curious. I wanted to learn things as well. So with that input, I found people were very positive to contribute to my projects. And I visited people that I admired, and that's always a good entrance to a project.
Yeah. So different people have a different style of making a similar object?
Yeah, if you know the handicraft, you can see who's made it. But also different people have different specialties.
What types of items do you most enjoy making yourself?
Oh, it's so different depending on what mood I'm in. But recently I've been working a lot with pearls.
Pearls?
Yeah.
And you make jewelry, or the pearls are just used decoratively on other objects?
Well, in my traditional clothing, we use pearls to embroider different patterns on the chest piece and also on the belt, for example. Or you can make like longer necklaces with patterns.
Interesting. And you mentioned the clothing, which in Sami is called gakti. It's also handmade. It's often very colorful, and the individual details on items can indicate where someone's from or identify other aspects of a person. Can you elaborate further about that? How the clothing differs in different regions, perhaps, or for different uses?
Yeah, in Norway, we compare it to the Norwegian traditional clothing because the biggest difference between those two is that the Norwegian traditional clothing, there's very strict rules of how it's made, but the Sami traditional clothing is more like a living tradition where you learn from your elders and we collectively develop it. But the main goal is to communicate who you are by wearing different pieces that tell something about your region or your family. But it has developed through styles, so you can perhaps see it in the 70s. There was short skirts. Nowadays, there have been a lot of glitter.
And you mentioned decorating your belt. Can you talk more about belts?
Yeah, they are different from every region.
How are they distinguished by region?
You really have to see them to know, but it's different patterns and different materials that are used. Mine is with pearls or pewter that are embroidered on red and green fabric with a letter.
Does the color have significance in terms of familial tradition or region?
Yeah, both. And it also signal if you're a man or a woman. Yeah.
So would men have more color than women or the opposite?
In my family, I have, as a woman, red and green, and the men have more blue in it as well. But I guess that could vary depending on what your family traditions are.
And is that just something that's been passed down for many years?
Yeah, you have to learn it at home. And we carry it nowadays mostly when we want to look nice. It could be at a funeral or like a baptism or a festival. Not that many carry it as an everyday garment, but a few.
But it's a dress clothing.
Yeah.
And it's much more free-form than traditional Norwegian clothing that would be worn by a Nordic person.
Yeah, because it's a living tradition that have never disappeared.
You mentioned festivals, and I understand there are many different Sami festivals. Can you talk about that a bit? What kinds of festivals there are, and do you photograph many of the festivals that are held?
I'm a bit of a diary photographer, so to remember my life and my everyday, I take pictures of where I am and
a visual diary.
Yeah, also at the festivals. So it's not like I'm a festival photographer, that I'm just photographing my life. But yeah, there's music festivals, but also other gatherings. Since we are a minority, it's nice to find these places where you can meet a lot of other people from your own culture and other youths.
And I understand the Sami have a National Culture Day in February.
Yeah, we have a National Day, 6th of February. Celebrates one of the first political meetings where Samis met from different regions in Sápmi and discussed politics in Trondheim.
And how is that celebrated?
I think we're still trying to find a form how to celebrate this National Day. It's very different from where you're at. Sometimes it's eating a lot of food in a public space or putting off the flag, singing national song. Sometimes there's concerts, meetings, dances. It's not one way to celebrate the National Day.
Right. Is the National Day celebrated in small villages in addition to in the city?
Yeah, it is. And also in schools.
So Norway's very northern latitude means there are big differences between the seasons. But rather than just 4 seasons, I've heard there are 8 seasons in Sami culture. What are they and how do they differ?
Yeah, you have Geirdelvia, Geire, geire, giese, giese, chakte, giese, chakte, chakte, dalvia, and dalvia. So that's like the spring, winter,
Uh-huh.
and spring, summer, summer, fall, summer, fall,
Hmm.
fall, winter, and winter.
Wow. How do you determine when those changes happen?
You can see what's happening in the different seasons. Like, for example, in the spring, winter, when the rain moves from the winterland to the springland,
Hmm.
and in the spring, where the calves are coming.
Hmm. So it's very much associated with flora and fauna and the changes in agriculture.
Yeah, you can see in the nature that it doesn't cover with only 4 seasons.
Hmm.
If you are outside, you can see the changes in between, and that's why we also have the names for those seasons.
Fascinating. Do you have a favorite season for making pictures?
I think in the middle of the summer, during the late summer nights, I love that, but also in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
every season has its own charm.
Yeah. Do you find that you photograph differently in the different seasons? It makes you change the way you take pictures or the subject matter you focus on?
Perhaps I haven't really reflected on that, but I think I produce most of my own work during the wintertime. When it's dark, and I hate to take pictures because it's no light, but then you need to look for it.
Mm.
And yeah, maybe it's the challenge that makes it.
And trying to find the light from within. It seems like
Yeah.
your pictures, especially the series of pictures you did with the Duodji, are people making things by interior light. They're very much lit from within.
Mhm.
So traditionally, the Sami have an animist belief system where every object has a spirit and there are strong connections to nature. And these ancestral beliefs were forbidden by colonizing forces, which enforced Christianity and did other things to erase indigenous culture. And I was very struck by an example of this in looking at the series of portraits you did of a well-known Sami performer named Mary Buena, who you photographed for a newspaper story. And she sings in the traditional style called joika. Yet for many years, she was terrified to do that after being convinced by her parents that joika and other ancestral animist beliefs were the work of the devil. Do you find that belief system that came from colonization is changing and people are reviving these indigenous traditions like joika?
Yeah, yoik hasn't disappeared, but I believe it has gotten different functions and taken different forms nowadays. But of course, we all carry the scars of our history, both positive and negative. But we carry our traditional beliefs in different ways, in the same way as it's normal to cross fingers, and that's a Christian sign to wish for something good.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of traditions in our culture as well that comes from this old religion,
Mm.
without necessarily being a ritual directly connected to something religious when you do it.
Right.
So we carry it with us. And I think people want to take back traditions.
Mm. So you mentioned crossing fingers. That is really intriguing to me. Are there other ancestral types of symbols like that you would do in Sami culture?
Some things like, for example, if you go out in nature, you shouldn't make too much noise, but you shouldn't sneak up as well.
Mm-hmm.
And to ask for permission if you're taking something in nature. Or, for example, if you sometimes pour some coffee to the fireplace. There's all those small kind of traditions.
Pour coffee to the fireplace to offer warmth?
Oh no, it's believed that there's a Sami goddess underneath the fireplace. So it was normal to give her something of yours.
Oh, so to keep the spirit alive in the fireplace.
Make her happy.
Mm-hmm. Wow, fascinating. So back to your photo session with Maribuena. What was the energy like during your photo shoot with her? Did she have a powerful presence? You talked about getting to know a person that you're photographing. What was your process with her?
This photo session was for a weekend magazine in one of Norway's newspaper called VG.
Mm-hmm.
So this particular session started with an interview with my colleague to write the story about her. And this was during a time where Sami youth protested against the windmill power plants in the middle of Norway. So Maribuena wanted to meet us at a coffee shop across from where the demonstrations happened. So that was when it all started. But she had so little time, so we decided to meet again at another time, and then we took the rest of it. It was a nice experience. I mean, I've seen her since I was a little child. But in my work, I meet a lot of famous people, so I'm not often starstruck. But it was a special experience to be there and take her pictures.
So was the second meeting outside of the protests a different feeling, a different energy to it?
The second time, she have just released a new album where she mixed the traditional way of singing called joik and also piano. And she had one song about female energy and foremothers. So I wanted to create powerful female energy.
A visual interpretation of the song?
Yeah.
Yeah, the pictures are beautiful.
And also she's carrying a hat who were long gone because of the Christianing. It weren't allowed to use it. But a lot of people have taken it back, and she have just gotten a new hat, which she wore at the photo shoot.
And this was something that was forbidden previously?
Yeah, it's a special kind of hat worn in the northernmost region of Sapmi, which could resemble like a horn where the priest said the devil were staying.
So it's just because of its
shape,
odd shape. Wow, fascinating. So I think this is a good time to take a short break. And when we return, we'll continue our conversation with Naina Helén Jåma about Norwegian Sami culture. Stay tuned. I hope you're enjoying this chat with Naina Helén Jåma as part of my series Picturing World Cultures. In the show's second half, we'll talk about Naina's work as a news photographer, both in Scandinavia and abroad. We'll also hear insights she gained when working as a photo editor and much more. But first, I want to remind you about our recent integration with B&H Photo's YouTube channel, conveniently located under the podcast tab. Pay us a visit, and while you're there, please leave a comment about your favorite episodes. We'll be keeping track of your thoughts, and we'll give our favorite comments an on-air shout-out. We consider our listeners an integral part of every episode, and we're truly grateful for your ratings, reviews, and engagement. And make sure to stay tuned for my next installment of Picturing World Cultures coming up in October. Okay, we're back, and we're speaking with Norwegian photographer Naina Helén Jåma. So tell me about the cameras you use. What's in your go-to kit for cameras and lenses?
Oh, it depends if I'm at work or if I'm shooting privately for myself, for my own projects. But at work, I carry three different camera bodies, two Nikon 5D and one Nikon Z9 with 70, 200 and 2470.
And so you're shooting both mirrorless and DSLRs?
Yeah, I do. I try to keep up.
Do you have a preference?
I really like the DSLR camera, but I hope the mirrorless will grow on me.
How long have you been shooting with the mirrorless?
1.5 years, I guess.
That's quite a lot to carry 3 cameras. Wow.
Yeah, but the best quality of being a good press photographer is to be prepared. And
Right.
you're not much without your camera, so it's good to have an extra one.
Exactly. Yeah. And for your personal projects, what cameras are you using for that?
Then I'm using a smaller camera body, Nikon 850.
Uh-huh.
And I also have a Ricoh on me on the go. A small one, pocket camera.
Right, so it's less invasive?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you find that people react differently when you're just shooting with the Ricoh?
Of course they are.
Yeah.
But I also react differently depending on what kind of camera I use.
So do you feel like you can get closer with someone when you're shooting with a smaller camera?
Not necessarily, but carrying a big camera, you're very visual as a photographer.
Mm-hmm.
But then you can just be a human until you start to shoot.
Right. Well, I notice in a lot of the portraits you make, you include close-up details in addition to overviews. Are your subjects aware that you're zeroing in on detail shots during the photo sessions?
It depends. I guess my method often is to talk a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm working on a portrait, I'm always explaining what I do to make people comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm making reportage work, I'm just running around taking pictures,
Right.
Being goofy the first half an hour, and then people just understand that that's the way I am, and yeah, and then it's okay.
Mm-hmm. And when you're doing the close-up shots, do you use different lenses for those?
It depends on what I'm carrying.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that the most interesting pictures are when you need to be creative because you don't carry a lot of lenses.
Right. Makes you work harder.
Yeah, so it's not about the gear. But I guess if I have the opportunity and I can't go closer, then I'll zoom in. But the best zoom is your feet, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. So northern Norway has very harsh winter climate. Do you have any tips for shooting in extreme cold or snowy weather or low light conditions during winter months?
I find the cameras can tolerate more than you think. So always to carry spare batteries
Right.
close to your body. It works. And don't give it like from really cold to really hot too fast. And other than that, I think it's no problem.
So with going from too cold to too hot, you're talking about condensation on lenses.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips for that? Do you just try to keep your gear outside acclimated to the cold weather?
In an ideal world, I would say yes to that, but I'm more spontaneous. So if you're working as a documentary photographer, you just have to go with the flow.
Right. Yeah. And keep a lot of lens cloths handy.
Yeah.
And what about fill flash, reflectors, other tools to help in bad lighting environments? Do you ever work with those, or do you prefer natural light or just boosting the ISO?
I like to document how I see things around me. But it's fun to use the flash sometimes, but it's not my go-to.
Right.
I guess it's a lot of high ISO in the winter times and me shaking, trying to stand still.
How high do you go with your ISO?
Oh, it's depending on what camera body I have. I could push it to 8,000, I think, if you have to.
Would that be with your DSLR?
Yeah, it's not ideal, but whatever you can document what's happening,
Yeah.
that's the most important thing.
Yeah. So when you work as a photojournalist, how do you structure your documentation between making pictures and gathering supporting information or conducting interviews? Do the photos come first? Do they come last?
Of course, the photos come first, but it's important to make good preparations. So if the preparations are, if you're going to an event or a special, then you need to know a lot about the place.
Right.
Or if it's about a person, you know a lot about the person. So I guess that comes first, to be prepared. If it means preparing your gear or preparing the information, knowing to be the right place at the right time. Yeah.
How much background research do you do on the people you photograph?
Well, it depends on what kind of project it is. I also do a lot of spot news, and then you can't be prepared at all, but then you are prepared with your gear. Yeah, like in the project I'm working on now, privately, as in the Norwegian Journal of Photography. Then I'm interviewing it's people I know a little bit about at the first place, and then I interview them just some hours, and then we decide what would be the most relevant, what's happening in their life, if there's a special event that's important to them that I could join.
And you take a picture that's representative of that point in their life.
Yeah, I'll see what comes to me.
Yeah. So in your newspaper work, you often have to photograph people on the go who have very limited time for you, and you're often shooting in more than one location. What advice do you have about getting portraits that are well composed, well lit, and also revealing of the subject's personality?
I always make a location scout and see how the light is at that point, and try to calculate how the light will be changing. And if you need to have an artificial light with you. And often I present my ideas and tell them why I think the ideas are relevant to them, because then I find they get relaxed faster. And then you often get more time.
If they're engaged.
Yeah, and then that they think your ideas are good.
Yeah.
And then I like to listen to the interviews, so I get the sense of their body language and what kind of expression they have. That's also helped me to help them pose or maybe change my mind. But have a good plan, then you can make a good shoot in some minutes.
Right. So by the interview, are you talking about the writer that you work with? You like to be present while they're interviewing the subject?
Both. And try to look at pictures that other photographers have been taking of the same person. How do they behave there? Why? And so on.
Right. That's a very good point. Yeah. So of all the public figures and celebrities you've photographed in Norway, do you have a favorite?
The favorite people are people that are not celebrities at all, that are maybe taking pictures for the first time to a newspaper. I think that's the most interesting. And when people do things they enjoy, that's the most interesting. What makes taking pictures fun is to get to take part of a story and a history of a person. And when you have the opportunity to get close to them and learn something new, and that we share like a trust, then it gets interesting.
Yeah. So is there any one person that you've photographed recently that comes to mind as a great experience?
Oh, as a photographer, you're always looking forward to the next picture. What will the next picture be? So I haven't really... No, I'm not sentimental about the pictures I've taken during the past.
That's a good way to keep moving, keep going forward. Yeah. Well, of the stories you photographed in Norway, is there one reportage that you consider to be your biggest accomplishment?
Not one in particular. I mean, the cameras led me to many interesting happenings. Like last summer, I went to the NATO summit. It was interesting to see high politics up close, of course. But I don't think that was the most interesting pictures coming out of it.
Yeah, I'm sure it must have been an incredible stage to be part of. Are there any recent news stories you've photographed related to issues that affect Sami culture?
Last year, it was also a lot of demonstrations where Sami youth demonstrated for a human rights violation, where a windmill company had built windmills on a territory. And they demonstrated against that. And that was also a special experience, being on the side as a photojournalist, to see that and see it with Sami eyes.
Yeah, I bet.
And compare that to both internationals and other Norwegian photojournalists documenting the same event.
Yeah, did you feel that you had a different perspective on the event and on the protest because you were more invested in the issue?
I have a deeper knowledge about the Sami politics because I've followed that topic for some time. And also, I don't get very focused on romantic pictures of clothing, rather than being more interested of facial expressions and feelings and different kind of historic people that are meeting politicians and activists and so on.
Right. And what's on the line in terms of these protests and what is planned to do with Sami territory?
They wanted to make a solution for the reindeer group who were affected of the human rights violations, and they come to term that they were supposed to find another winter grazing area for that family, and that in some years they could have a veto right for the wind power plant to continue, I think was the last development in that case. Yeah.
So it's on hold because of the grazing lands?
Yeah, it's on hold. But that was the Sami society. They got pressured from many different sides. And you can see that youths are engaging in protests and politics more now than before. But since this went to the High Court and they won, it was something special because a lot of the people I talked to said that they felt it didn't matter, even though they won in the Norwegian system. They weren't listened to. And that was one of the things that started this big movement.
And from what I understand, there's both a Norwegian parliament and a Sami parliament. Do the two bodies work in tandem at all, or are they totally distinct from each other?
No, like the Norwegian parliament is the main parliament in Norway, and then we have the Sami parliament that is mainly to give advice in issues that affects the Sami population in Norway. Yeah.
Right. So it's not a governing body, it's more of a sounding board. Yeah. And you were mentioning that the issue with the windmills is related to the reindeer herding. How widespread is reindeer herding currently? Has that been cut back recently because of encroachment of the land?
Well, the land is the one that decides how many animals who can live there. But the land is also affected of climate change and predators being present, who also gets less territory because of building of cabins, more tourists, power plants, more roads.
Vacation homes.
Yeah, where forests taking down. So it's a pressure from many different angles.
Right.
And also it's normal for the oldest child to take the reindeer herding to the next generation, even though a lot of the family help.
So would it be the oldest son always, or is it just the oldest child?
The oldest child who are interested.
And from what I understand, there's regulations that give the Sami people an exclusive access to be a reindeer herder. Is that correct?
In special parts of the country, yes. Sami reindeer herding in Sápmi are only made by Sami families.
So these days, how common is it for Sami people to leave Sami areas and move to urban areas?
It's as normal as like in Norway and Sweden and Finland, I guess it's normal to move to take your education. And depending on what line of work you're interested in. It's not always easy to find work in the traditional Sami areas. But nowadays, you have also more of a Sami society in big cities as well that you can be a part of.
And is that educational moment something that many people bring back to occupations like hunting and fishing and combine knowledge?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I would say so.
So you regularly work for the Norwegian newspaper VG, and in 2022, you took on a role as temporary director of photography for them. What did you learn about making pictures through the work on the other side of the lens?
Yeah, I was a photo editor. Maybe I got more cynical, I think. Because when you're looking at numbers and seeing how readers are reacting and understanding what works on a mobile phone. But I think maybe it made me faster because then I took those like a checklist. And after that, I got a bigger freedom to be creative as well.
Because you wanted to break outside of the box of traditional or expected.
Understanding what kind of bricks you need to build this traditional story, and then also working outside that box.
You mentioned looking at the response from viewers to the use of pictures online with phones. Would you say that was very different than in the print newspaper, the response?
First of all, everything is smaller.
Right.
I like big sceneries with a lot of different details. And it's harder to display that on the front of a newspaper on a phone. So I guess to make someone curious or let people know, like a good journalistic pictures, visual at a small area, that's the art in itself. It may differ from those photojournalistic pictures you can see in books or big prints.
Right. Yeah. And so your experiences as a photo editor have made you more creative when you're photographing as a photographer, you said?
I hope so. I guess, yeah. As I said, I think it made me more aware of what works. And when you're sure that you have what you need, then you could start being creative and taking risks.
Right.
And once you start taking risks, it gets more interesting because you can't plan for the most fun and interesting news stories. They come to you when you document reality.
They just come organically.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have to learn how to look out for those things.
Yeah.
So as we mentioned earlier, you recently embarked on a project about Sami heritage for the Norwegian Journal of Photography. And in your proposal for the award you received, you cited a Sami proverb that says, "Man borrows the land from future generations." You plan to ask young people their thoughts about this saying and about the challenges related to climate and the environment and about the legacy that will be handed down to them. Have you been able to collect many insights about these ideas yet?
Yeah, I have. I have a lot of thoughts about the topics myself, but in the light of the early pictures and portraits of Sami people, where the photographer were the one coming in and defining the moments and what the person should be, I wanted to talk to other people and see if they had the same thoughts as me, and confirm it or not confirm it.
Yeah. And have your findings so far confirmed that idea?
Yeah, people have a lot of thoughts in common, but also different insights. So I have a lot of interviews that I've carried with me in my visual diary way of photographing, but also in the portraits where I've been asking people in this setting where they want to be portrayed and with what clothes. And yeah.
And do you find that starting the conversation with this sort of question about legacy changes the way the portrait session happens and the look of the resulting portrait?
Yeah, I think so. But I think not only in Sami culture, but I think that it's interesting for every person. How do you want to be remembered?
Right.
For the next generation. And I think that was what it started. How do we want to be remembered? And also from my pictures from the museum, where I remember the generations before me from these portraits. And I wanted to give that power to the person, how they wanted to be seen. Yeah.
Yeah, that's important. So what, if any, connections do you find between the culture of today's Sami youth and past cultural heritage and traditions?
It's really not one way to describe it. We carry our past with us, and not only Samis do that, everyone does that. Carrying what we've learned and pride from the people that came before us, and with those who are coming afterwards in mind.
Well, that's a really wonderful thought to end on. I really appreciate your time, Naina. Thank you so much for speaking with me today and for the insights you've shared about the Norwegian Sami culture and your documentation of life in Norway. But before we go, I'd like to end with a short visual questionnaire inspired by the TV show Inside the Actor's Studio. It's a brief list of questions with one-sentence answers. So Naina Helén Jåma, with all things being equal, is your preference color or black and white?
It's color.
Yeah, figured.
Yeah, closest to reality.
And which image orientation do you gravitate to more often, horizontal or vertical or square?
Horizontal.
Double truck. What's your lens preference, prime or zoom?
I would say prime. 35 millimeters.
And that would be the one lens that you would carry with you if you could only bring one?
Yeah, 35.
35. Great. What one photographer, living or dead, has influenced your work the most?
Oh, wow. I would say my relative, Dan Jåma. He's a film photographer. He's the one that told me to go for my dream.
Oh, wow. So by film photographer, do you mean cinematographer?
Yeah. But he also do still photography.
And does he do movies?
Both.
Tell me a little bit more about him.
He has a very big career in reporting for like war zones for the Swedish news, and also making documentaries. For example, one that I love is about a dog. And he also has portraits that's a part of the art collections.
So you said a documentary about the dog? What do you mean by that?
I remember it so well because it was, I saw it when I was a child at the local cinema in Snåsa. It got displayed there, and it's a documentary about a small dog from the dog's perspective. And I thought it was so fun.
So outside of photography, what profession or craft would you most like to explore?
The thing is, I've tried different professions and crafts, and there was nothing like photography. Photography is not easy, so if I could choose something else, I guess I would, but I can't.
Photography has adopted you.
Yeah.
And in a single word, what's your biggest motivation for making pictures?
To document the world we live and make the image of our present for the ones coming after us.
Yeah, the word legacy is an important aspect that it seems very close to your heart.
Yeah.
So do you have upcoming projects or plans that you can tell us about? Where are you in the cycle of working on this project for the Norwegian Journal of Photography?
I'm almost done with year number 1, and I have 1 more year to go. So I guess I will focus all my time on that in the coming months. I'll speak to more people and be in more settings where I can find glimpses that reflects their stories.
And how wide a net are you spreading with those pictures and those interviews?
I've been concentrating to the South Sami people, and so from Oslo to further north in Norway, and also someone in Sweden.
And this project is going to be compiled as a book?
Yeah, it will be part of a book and exhibition, and I also hope that it one day will become a single exhibition as well.
For your own work, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to seeing more about that in the coming months and years. Where can guests find out more about your work?
Well, I think the best place is to go to my social media, like Instagram, but I also have a webpage with my name, so nainahelén.com.
It's just your first 2 names.com.
Yeah.
Great. So again, Naina Helén Jåma, thanks for joining us today and for your passion in telling authentic stories about Norwegian Sami culture and traditions. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, thank you.
And to our listeners, if you enjoyed today's show, we'd love to hear about it. Pull up this episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, B&H's YouTube channel, or wherever you get your podcasts, and leave us a comment. While you're there, make sure that the subscribe button is clicked for automatic updates about every episode release. You can also find us and drop us a line on the Explora blog, where we post photos from our guests along with the show notes. And if you're a fan of social media, please join us on Facebook at the B&H Photography Podcast group, where you can share your favorite photos and comment about the show. I'm Jill Waterman, the podcast creative producer and host of this series. Episodes are recorded, mixed, and edited by technical producer Mike Weinstein. Theme music for this series is composed by Gabriel Richards, and our executive producer is Richard Stevens. On behalf of us all, thank you so much for listening.